Hello, I'm Jack, and you're listening to the Here, There, and Everywhere podcast, an interview show about the Beatles' influence in the past, present, and future across the universe and across generations. Hello, and welcome to the 18th episode of the Here, There, and Everywhere podcast. I am your host, Jack Lawless. Before we begin today's episode, I just want to thank all of the listeners for their support. I'm so happy you are all loving the show, and I love reading your feedback. If you listen to this podcast but don't follow us on Twitter, be sure to follow us at Beatles Earth. If you follow us on Twitter but you're not yet subscribed to this podcast, be sure to follow it and you'll get new episodes every week. Today it's my honor to introduce a guest who really needs no introduction. I welcome the legendary Rosanna Arquette. Rosanna, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's an honor. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm okay. Am I good? Hold on. You really okay? I'm anxious and very disturbed and sad about what's going on in the world and especially America right now. Well, a lot of places, but like the Ukraine, but here. And we're here to talk about the Beatles, and what better time to talk about the Beatles, because when there was so much strife, the civil rights movement, and in the time that they were making music, Vietnam War, that was the artists and the music that, took us and taught us and healed us. And music is very healing, and the Beatles were always that for me.
So what was life like for you at the time when you first heard the Beatles?
I had parents. I grew up with music all around me. And so my father was an actor, musician, and my mother was an actress, poet, acting teacher, activist. They were both activists. So the Beatles were just so much a part of my childhood. I mean, just the music of the Beatles. I mean, one of the earliest memories is I had when, like, my mom told me that, the Sgt. Pepper record, and I was a kid and I had it playing it on my record player, and I had, like, I had such my taste in music, like then, like I loved With Him Without You, like the George Harrison song so much, and just remember that time. And then I've always loved Revolver. I think Revolver might even be my favorite record, because
Really?
if you were to ask me my favorite Beatles song, it is Tomorrow Never Knows.
So your parents are the reason you got into the Beatles?
Yeah, because I grew up, it was always playing. The Beatles were always playing. Dylan, Joni, like all the great, iconic, great singer-songwriters.
And what was it about the Beatles specifically that captivated you?
Well, it's just an energy that they put out musically, and it would, when you put on you're in a car, you're in the traffic, no matter what, the Beatles song comes on, it can transport you. Their music would transport you to an energy of, I would say, really, they, like, you hear, they were about peace and love.
Yeah.
They always have been. I mean, Ringo always says peace and love. Like they embodied that, and I thought it was really incredible. And I had known this, but that it's a new audience is understanding the Beatles from the Get Back on Disney, 6-hour masterpiece that Jackson did, and it is a masterpiece. And I've seen it. It's like, I'm just got like chills. I love this thing so much. It like saved me in this time, which has been a really awful, painful time for me. And just to like, just be in the studio during this watching this documentary and seeing their creative process and all the stuff that they went through to even stick together as a band in a really powerful time where, they're dealing with massive fame and the energy that's at them, and trying to keep it together and keep it going. Oh, it's just, I love it so much. And I've actually watched the whole thing I think 3.5 times. I mean, I want to keep going. I mean, it's just so incredible. And the timing to have this 50 years later is just important. And a whole new generation of people who don't even you got to be like, who are you if you don't know the Beatles? But some kids just didn't care. Like they don't know them. Isn't that? And it just blows my mind.
Yeah.
But I mean, I had music playing when I was giving birth, which was a long 50-hour labor with my kid, who was amazing, my daughter. And so the Beatles were playing. I had Joni Mitchell, the Beatles, like just music that I loved. And it was so funny because she was born to the We Are the Yellow Submarine.
Oh, wow.
Funny. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, what is it about the Beatles that makes them so important now? Why are they having this resurgence all of a sudden?
Because they wrote about what was going on in the world. I mean, for instance, Paul McCartney is just talking about, and this is, I knew that, and a lot of Beatles fans, I'm sure, knew this, but what Blackbird was about was the struggle of Black people and the civil rights movement that was happening, and that it was in the time Martin Luther King had been killed, and Malcolm X. I mean, all the movement of the Black Panther movement, which was really, they did, a lot of people vilified the Black Panthers, but what they were doing was helping the community thrive, and so I love that came out and people understand that what that song is about, and that Paul wrote that, and it's gorgeous, to know that now. So they were always conscious about what is going on in the world, and more than ever, what we're dealing with now. And even Paul, he's on the road right now. He's doing concerts. He's out there. They're still, touring and bringing a whole new audience alive with the energy of what the Beatles were, which really are about love and peace. Love.
One of my favorite facts about the Beatles is that when they came to America, they refused to play segregated audiences.
Isn't that incredible?
In 1964. Yeah.
Fantastic.
I love it.
That's how, they had integrity and consciousness and elegance in their creativity, which we see even in the strife and the connection in the Get Back. We see, even though there was stuff going on, with people being hurt, or there was respect.
So, Rosanna, what made you want to pursue acting as a career?
Well, I grew up around, my father was an actor, my mother was an actress too at the time, and kind of just grew up around creative people that were acting and singing and dancing, and musicians and painters and poets and activists. So that was like a very colorful, beautiful childhood that I really, I value so much now, because look at what's happening here is very terrifying. I just woke up this morning feeling like, oh my God, are we going to be okay? How old are you, by the way?
I'm 25 years old.
So this is intense what you're going through.
Yeah.
Like, be a kid, you're a man, a young man, but gosh, to have to wake up, and it's terrifying because we've worked so hard. I feel really bad. I just want to say, I'm sorry. I just want to cry. I'm so sorry that we're leaving this awful mess for you guys. It's terrible. But the greatest thing that can happen right now is somebody like you and your age is to galvanize your peers and register everybody to vote, and vote for, for equality and all the things that are happening right now. That, like, this is crazy what's happening, especially to everybody that's not, old and white and Christian.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
and a male. So it's pretty terrifying. That's,
Yes. Well, one thing I notice among my age group in particular is the optimism. A lot of my friends and a lot of people my age feel optimistic about the future. And it's definitely something I feel as well. I mean, I definitely feel like things will get better.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for telling me that, because I've been a real Debbie Downer in that I'm feeling a little hopeless, and I don't usually, that's not really how I resonate in the world, but this especially the last, couple of weeks, but just ever since 2016, It's just,
Hmm.
but now, young people are the future, and they have the power to change us. And man, no matter, like, does we got to vote. We've got to get out, no matter, stand in line, don't go to work that day, whatever it is, just everybody's got to do it.
Yeah,
And get to the other side of this stuff, because we are the people, and people have the power.
that's right.
Smith was saying. I'm in California right now, and kind of restructuring my whole life, and I'm thinking of going back east and just getting out of here, and the fires and the sadness and all, like,
Yeah,
running out of water and all the things that are going to happen because of climate change,
yeah.
which is really important that we focus on now. And
Hmm.
I think it's going to hit the West Coast really hard.
Yeah, I mean, I think in 2018, you guys had that huge fire that swept through Big Sur and all the way down the coast.
And I have a house in Big Sur that's almost burnt down. I mean, a cabin that's
Oh
crumbling, but
man,
and it's been, yeah, scary.
I feel hope when I see people like Greta Thunberg, you know,
Gee, so
taking
so
the,
do, so do I. And speaking of it, which there's a book that Jane Fonda wrote called "What Can I Do," which is all about climate change action, what you can do.
Hmm.
It's great. It's really great to hear her read it, because it's dense with incredible information. But that happened because Catherine Keener and I and Jane took a road trip up to Big Sur, and we were talking about Greta, and this whole idea that just sparked in Jane, where she said we really need to do something. And she, in that trip, came up and talked with Annie at Leonard at a Greenpeace, and within a few days, it was a Labor Day weekend 3 years ago, she said, we're going to go to DC. She moved to DC for 6 months and started Fire Drill Fridays,
wow,
and to bring attention to what was going on with climate change. Her whole life's work right now, at the end of this, she's done so much, um, is really about climate change.
wow.
Yeah, it's worth reading, or get at her reading it, because it's actually fantastic hearing her read it.
Yeah, what's it called again?
What can I do? But else about the Beatles.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
But it's all part of it, because at the end of the day, these are Paul and Linda McCartney were very closely involved with the organization called ARC, which was which was all about climate change. And that's how many years ago? Let's see, 30. It could have been 30 years ago.
mhm.
They were involved with this. Chrissy Hines, I know Edge from U2, because I went with a bunch of people, Peter Gabriel and all. We went to Russia with Greenpeace years ago, and Chrissy Hine was very involved with this organization ARC, and so were Linda McCartney and Paul. And Linda, and that's when they decided not to eat meat because it was hurting the planet. So the Beatles, all of them, have been very involved in and evolved for many years, and their music just can put you in that state. Yeah, I mean, I cannot tell you how much I love that documentary.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just
It really saves you, doesn't it?
music saves.
Yeah.
Like, it really does. And there's so many great musicians, but there's something about the Beatles. You know how, like, because I have a lot of friends, a lot of musicians, guitars and instruments around me, that because I have friends that come and play, and I've always been around that, and it's so important to have the energy of it. But when songwriters write, it's almost like this muse comes through them. It's an energy. And for me, the music of the Beatles has a direct connection to light,
I know exactly what you mean by that because I experienced that too.
right?
Yeah.
And it's so, like, and that is, there's a lot of music that, like, and I listen to all sorts of music, and it's not, but their music really is that for
Hmm.
me. It always has been,
Yeah.
and you can see the difference. Like, there's even when they're going through their personal stuff. I love, a writer writes what they know. And so, like, they were always very honest. Like a journal, and putting it out into music.
So I actually had Rob Sheffield from Rolling Stone on a recent podcast, and he brought up a cool fact that Paul McCartney doesn't write songs about men. They're always about women. And I think that's a really cool insight to seeing how much the Beatles were influenced by women. And you can see that in Paul. His vegetarianism was influenced by Linda. And John's philosophies were very much influenced by Yoko. And, I mean, all of the Beatles went to India because of Pattie Boyd. So, it brings me to the question, how did the Beatles influence your life?
Oh gosh. I would just say that they're the soundtrack to my life. I mean, actually, I would say just how they influence me.
Can be answered in so many different ways. It's
No,
a
I
very
don't.
vague
It's
question.
just energetically the feeling, like, the connection of light.
Yeah.
It's like a spiritual experience, and I feel like that's been a big part of different chapters of my life. I could say Beatles songs would be that chapter.
Are there any specific Beatles songs that really help you through those different chapters of your life?
Like I told, well, it's my favorite song is Tomorrow Never Knows.
Right.
That's which is on Revolver. Sometimes, like, recently I would just like, because it just reminded me of my childhood, but Hey Bulldog, that song. Hey
Yeah.
Bulldog, just have that song.
I love that song.
Don't you? Isn't
Yeah.
it great? And I just like it played the other day, and I was just like, oh, I love this song so much. Gosh, there's just I could go on, and Baby You're a Rich Man. I love Within Without You from, I love the White Album is spectacular too. And that reminds me of a whole time when I think I was 13 years old, and that I had a little cassette player and the double thing of cassette of the White Album. And I played it all the time on my cassette player. When I was 13. I'm different, like, so God, I was like 5 or 6 with Sergeant Pepper. I remember 9, like, even though 9 was like also revisiting Sergeant Pepper, and I wanted my own space because when my sister was born, I had my own bedroom, and then my sister was born, and we had to share a bedroom, so I wanted my own space. So I made a little my record player inside the closet, and made this pillows and stuff, my own thing. And I remember being in there and listening to, at that time, also like Sergeant Pepper. And then also Abbey Road was a time where I had a next door neighbor friend, my friend Maya, and we used to play Rob Abbey Road, and I think I was 9. Yeah, and we just put the Beatles on, and it will transport you into an energetic field of where you need to be, or in some sense, sort of a healing.
Yeah.
It's always been for me.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite memory associated with the Beatles?
Associated with the Beatles, a favorite
Yeah.
memory. Well, I mean, there was a period. No, it's too personal. I probably shouldn't talk about it. So never mind. Yeah, I better not. So,
Well, you just appeared in the brand new video for My Sweet Lord, which
yeah.
has about like 30 million views on YouTube now.
Well, Danny Harrison is a friend of mine, and love Danny, and his manager, and of course Olivia, George's beloved wife, who I just saw recently because a close friend of ours just passed away. And so it was really sweet that they asked me to be in there. It was so funny because we did film this whole section, which they cut because it was just like, but there was a moment where, like, we were in the movie theater, and I just started like dancing to, like, just rocking out and singing, and then got up to sing to like dance, but they cut that.
That song came out like 50 years ago, and it's still so popular. And the Beatles are still so popular.
Yeah, they're probably I would say, aren't they biggest band in the world, like most important band in the world. I mean,
Yeah.
and of course there's the Stones too, but the Beatles have, I mean, they're all, people, the Beatles, the Stones, like they're all great, but the Beatles did have this energy of like, even though like they were all experimenting and doing just drugs at one time, and
Mhm.
it's really great when you see somebody like Paul out, and Ringo goes on the road too. They're out on the road and
Yeah.
they're playing the huge concerts. It's funny because one of my friend Paul Tillett from Golden Voice, who is Coachella, who it's his festival. He asked me because he knew that I knew Sir Paul McCartney and we were friends, and if I'd ask him to do Coachella,
Right.
and I did. And yeah, at the time, Paul didn't know what Coachella was. He didn't. Now he goes every year, and I'm telling you, that was one of the greatest concerts. There was this moment. Oh my God, Paul did have a funny moment. This is Paul McCartney playing at Coachella, and I used to shoot the backstage interviews for Coachella
Yeah.
years ago. So I did that for a lot of years, and that was kind of my favorite job I've ever done, I have to say. So I interviewed all these people, but that concert, it was so powerful, and people just went, like, there were kids that actually didn't know the Beatles, and it was such a huge event, like him
Wow.
playing Coachella and the songs, and bringing them, and everybody singing Hey Jude, and it was
Mhm.
great.
That's
And
so cool.
there was this one moment where, because I was like on the side of the stage, and there was huge screens, and I just was like in awe of it. And then I kind of like wanted to get this other angle. So I went behind the stage, and there was this, there was something that was interesting happening behind the stage of people and the workers. And I kind of was on the fence looking from behind it all, so I could see the audience too.
Yeah.
And then I heard this voice going, move, move. And I was like, what? Like, because it was like a, and a fireman came and they grabbed me and rolled me out. This was such a knucklehead moment in my life. And it was just about to be, he was doing Live and Let Die.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was the fireworks. Right. I didn't see, like, it was like they were going to be blasted right where I was, like total, like I probably would have maybe lost my face, but it was just pretty crazy in this moment. But I was like, okay, that was a silly knucklehead moment in my life.
That's awesome. Speaking of Paul playing live, did you see him bring out John Lennon's voice during his most recent, on his tour? I think he does it
Just not like
for
the
the
tour
encore.
he's on right now.
Yeah.
No, is it on YouTube? I haven't seen it.
Yes.
I didn't see it. No, what is
Yes.
it?
So during the encore, he plays "I've Got a Feeling,"
Which
and
is one of my favorite songs.
yes,
It's
and
one of my favorite songs.
and during John's part, he turns to the back of the stage, and on the giant screen behind him is Peter Jackson's restored footage of John playing on the rooftop, and John's voice comes through the speakers, and there's a point where John and Paul harmonize together as they're singing the song.
Well, I did definitely want to see this tour.
Yeah, yeah, I think I'm going. I think it's next month in New Jersey.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
he's in the big arena in
yeah,
In June?
in June. Yes,
Went June what?
I believe it's 16, 18, something like that.
I wonder if it. So I have to go. I'm going to go there I have to be in New York. God, I'd love to see that too.
Yeah, and Ringo's playing right around then too at Radio City. I'll be there as well.
Oh, great, great. Have you actually interviewed them? Have you interviewed Paul or Ringo?
Not yet. I would love to though.
Yeah,
Working my way up there.
yeah.
So one day I'll have them on. I would love. I got a couple questions that I hope no one's asked them before. I'm pretty
I bet
sure
you
no
do.
one has.
I bet you do.
So Rosanna, what have you been up to recently? What kind of projects have you been involved in?
What have I been up to these days? Just a lot of my energy for the past 5 years has gone into activism and trying to do everything we can to, work with groups and the environment. And like I said, going, Fire Joe Fridays and Greenpeace and women's rights and the Me Too movement, which I was a part of in the beginning, with helping put Harvey Weinstein in jail, and making sure, Ronan Farrow and the New York Times got their story out with many women.
You're a hero for speaking up about that, by the way.
Well, many of us, it takes a village, and what was good about that was that although we're seeing such an insane backlash from it right now, because clearly how threatening it was to, obviously, men in power, so threatening.
Mm-hmm.
Want that exposed, and then we're seeing it. What are we seeing now? I just remember when the Kavanaugh hearings were happening. It was, right after, it was all part of it. It was in the height of the movement, and they're trying to just shut it all down. They're just trying to make rape legal, and literally this draconian, barbaric craziness that's happening right now that is insane. It's absolutely insane.
Mm-hmm.
And so really my focus has really been that stuff in life for the last few years. And it didn't really leave a lot of room for creativity. Not that I haven't done little things here and there. I did a movie with Eleanor Coppola that Rita Wilson is in, and many other beautiful actresses, but little things. So I'm actually ready to throw myself and be able to go back to work. A lot of things are shot in other states, and if you do a television series and you have to move to another state for 6 months, that didn't work at the time, for my marriage, and now I'm free to be able to go do work, and be able to do that now. So that's good. It's exciting.
I'm happy for you.
Yeah, I'm ready. And I have a film that I'm going to direct, and I have I'm really blessed to come from a really incredible creative family. Everybody, is so super creative, and I really am grateful to my parents for instilling that in all of us. And social justice was part of the way we grew up. And I've told this story before, but my mother was an organizer for the anti-war Love and Peace but a march in Chicago, when we lived in Chicago, where my sister Patricia was born, and Martin Luther King came.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I was in the back of a truck with him. I remember this so much. I remember this moment. And my mom had painted on my bare chest, "Stop the war, kill no more."
Wow.
And he asked my name, and I told him, and I remember, and he said hello, and then he said, "Someone put a shirt on that little girl." so but that's yeah.
What a great story.
Yeah. And because, I was a hippie kid, and my mother was in the Rainbow Coalition with Fred Hampton, and, helped working in the kitchens, and marched, and she was an organizer and a poet. And, I'm so grateful for that. I think I took it for granted so much, and that all links also to music, the music that influenced my life. Of course, we're here to talk about the Beatles, and that time would be that time of listening, like this. Actually, I'm wearing my Magical Mystery t-shirt. I had this great, I was like, "Where's my Revolver t-shirt and my Abbey Road?" And I'm moving right now. Like, I packed all the stuff. It's like, someone took my 2 really good Beatles t-shirts. I'm really upset about it.
Oh no.
I can't find the Revolver.
Yeah.
So bummed. So
yeah, I mean, you mentioned, or growing up during that time of activism and being surrounded by, your mom and all of her thoughts. And, that was also a period of when John Lennon started getting into activism as well, with his songs Power to the People and Imagine. And that, like 1970, 1971, I think those came out. And that is a huge influence on my life as well.
but I think that Yoko did have that. I think that was part of Yoko's, as much as a lot of people like hated Yoko, I think they broke up the band, like or she did, but her influence on him was huge,
Yeah.
and how they met, I don't know if you know the story. She was an artist and performance artist and did all this work before, and she had he went to a gallery and it was a ladder and it was an art thing that he had to climb the ladder and you open this little window and it says yes. I think it said yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Yeah.
Which was, inspiring, like positivity. We're in a world right now where your age, just musically too, just like, oh man, I feel like something like the old fashioned, like mom, like, what is this shit? Like, what is it? Like, really?
Yeah.
I mean, not just like, but I'll get into like, Rage Against the Machine, like, and Tom Morello and a song like the Zach and those guys, and that's a powerful, even though it's like rawr, but it's powerful stuff politically. And I do, not sometimes I'll, need to blast them in this time, but some of it is like, wow, like really, like, do we really need to be talking about when you have these powerful women there, then they have such a voice and they have such an audience to just keep, having to talk about stripping and stuff, like, really, you have so much power. What you could do, right now could change people's, vibe. I mean, I think there was a period where I didn't really appreciate Lady Gaga in the beginning. Like, I didn't get until I really love how she's evolved as an artist, as an activist, as an influence. I watched that Billie Eilish, documentary, and her, she has like the power of music and the voice. And when you do it for good and what it can do, that's what the Beatles did in the time. And it really did galvanize and it was a movement in itself. And it's so important when artists have that kind of influence to what they can do for good. And that's what the Beatles did. So like, even with, Billie Eilish out there with, her audience and girls sobbing and like, she's trying to change things. And that's how Gaga did too. Like it's when they use it for good, it's a beautiful thing.
I also like Taylor Swift for that reason too. I think she inspires a new generation of youth. She's definitely one of my favorite artists now. I mean, I could talk about music. I love all different kinds.
So she's like, what do you think of Billie Eilish? She's a little young for you.
I love Billie Eilish's music. Her and her brother.
I love that documentary. I mean, that's what did it for me. Like, I never really.
I haven't seen that actually.
Oh, it's so good. It is. It's a beautiful. And then her brother, who's really, like, he's a powerhouse creator, and them together. Yeah, it's worth seeing that documentary.
Yeah, is that on Disney Plus?
I don't know. I think it might, or HBO. I don't know. I don't remember.
I'll research it. I'll find it.
Yeah.
I know Disney Plus has all the good movies now, including Get Back.
Yeah. Yes.
So what kind of other music do you like?
I love soul music, but I love but from like Sly and the Family. I mean, Sly and the Family is rock and soul, but I love Sly and the Family Stone. I think that's one of the great bands ever. I love James Brown. I love James Brown. Love James Brown. I love Aretha. I love, old 70s. I love Tribe Called Quest.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They're great.
Yeah, I
love them.
Yeah, me too. So you can see that I really love music. Yes,
I know. I'm the exact same way. I have a Bob Dylan poster over my left shoulder here.
I saw your Dylan back there. I see the Beatles and that Beatles poster on the side. I can see. Yeah.
I have hundreds of books about different artists and bands and stuff. But
I have huge book collection too of everybody. Like,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
do you have a
yeah.
favorite biography or book about them?
About the Beatles? No,
About it?
when I think of my favorite music is Just Kids.
Hmm.
Have you heard? Have you ever read it?
No, I haven't.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so get Patti Smith reading the book, Just Kids. Get the audio of her reading this book. It's extraordinary. And it really brings you through all of it. It has the same energy of creativity and struggle that, I mean, it's really the struggle of artists.
Hmm.
And when she was living at the Chelsea Hotel, and it's just it's really great, and people that surrounded her and who she got to meet and young, and
Wow.
you love it. I
Yeah, I'll
promise
totally
you,
check
you
that
love it.
out.
Yeah,
It's
but you
called
want
Just Kids?
it's Just Kids, and it's Patti Smith reading it. You want the
Oh,
audio of her reading it.
that's so awesome.
Robert Mapplethorpe, that's the picture in the other room. My brain just lost. Robert Mapplethorpe was a very famous photographer that died. That was her best friend, and it's them growing up as artists together.
I just got this one right here, Brandy Carlisle's biography.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
Have you listened to her at all?
yeah, I know her. She's because of Joni, because I'm friends with Joni, and they became friends. And yeah, and she's blowing up right now. She just played an Oscar party for Elton John.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, music is so transformative, and it's just had such a huge influence on my life, and I don't know where I'd be without it. I really have
Me.
no idea.
Do you play?
I do. Yes.
Do you play guitar?
I play the guitar, bass, piano, and the ukulele, and a little bit of harmonica.
Oh, how wonderful.
Oh, do you
Yes.
play at all?
It's so crazy. I've got, see on the floor over there, you see there's guitars on the floor. You
Yeah.
see?
Yeah, I see that.
But no, I mean, it's
No,
so
no.
funny. I don't, I just have them for my friends, but I also like, which I haven't done in a lot of years, like as much as I used to just always have people. Oh, I did have my friend Amanda Ghost in this, and FKA Twigs and Minnie Driver were over a month ago and had a little moment and jam session in the here, and that was so nice playing old Beatles song. You
Oh,
know,
wow.
yes, it's like I mean, I think that there was some, yeah. So it's neat.
That's so fun. Have you ever wanted to pursue that?
No, because I'm better at being the cheerleader, and now it's plugged in. All this time I'm sitting here on the floor and there it is. So yeah, I had this very funny, I was gonna do a short, uh, little short movie that I always had a fantasy of, because I do know so many great musicians that are friends of mine, and all it was just each one showing me a chord
Oh, really?
and then actually playing the chord that a song is like, that
That's
would have,
awesome.
yeah. But everybody right now, more than ever, I think, especially with we need music more than ever right now,
Hmm.
because it's healing. It brings people together. It's the language that everyone can understand,
Hmm.
and 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 get back into the energy of music that can heal and transform us. Because and if we have ever are starved for it more than ever, it's now. You know.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I'm wondering, where do you see the Beatles' music and influence like in the next 50 to 100 years from now?
Well, these techie people like, I don't even give him the guy that's going up there in space with his penis rocket up to Mars. I'm sure they'll be blasting the Beatles up there,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's, that'll happen.
Yeah. Do you think they'll be as important then as they are now and as they once were in the 60s? And
I think that they are the band, and like the Stones, like many people that we've been talking about, but of course the Beatles will be, the ones that will stand the test of time forever. Yes.
Yeah. Well, Rosanna, thank you so much for coming on. It was an absolute honor to have you.
Thank you so much. And I'm sure we'll talk soon, and I look forward to hearing your music.
Thank you all for listening to another episode of the Here, There, and Everywhere podcast. I'm Jack Lawless. Follow us on Twitter at BeatlesEarth. Check out our website, BeatlesEarth.com. Thank you again to Rosanna Arquette for coming on. It was such an honor, and it was an absolute goal of mine to have you on, so thank you so much. And if you like this podcast, be sure to follow it so you'll get updates every single Wednesday when we release a new episode.